Hello everybody, how are you? Hello everybody, how are you? It is time to start our day. It is time to work and play. Hello everybody, how are you? Hi guys, welcome back. Are you ready to talk about Thanksgiving with me today? I'm excited to learn a little bit about the very first Thanksgiving together today. What is Thanksgiving? Anybody know? What is it? Why do we celebrate it? Why do we eat turkey? Why do we eat stuffing and potatoes and corn? Why do we watch football or watch parades for that matter? What are we doing on Thanksgiving? Why do we get together with family and celebrate? Well, today we're going to talk about some of those answers. We're going to find out some of those things together. We're going to read a story and do a few other things. But first, I want to show you our big continent map. We've been looking at different places in the world. We started with North America, and lately we've been talking about a continent called Europe. So let's take a quick peek at this map because this is a very important part of our lesson today. Now, a long time ago, we're going to find out in a few minutes that it was 400 years ago, there was a group of people in England that weren't happy there, so they left and they got onto a boat and they sailed across the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, to come to North America. Now, on our map, it doesn't look like that far of a distance. This is the ocean here. It doesn't look like that far. I mean, you look at all this, that's a lot more. But it really is a very long distance if you are on a boat. So they left here and they sailed on their boat and they came over here to North America. And we're going to find out a little bit more about that in our story. Now, before we move on though, do you remember, we haven't sung our song in a while. There are 7 continents total. Let's see if you remember our song. We'll sing that and then we'll talk about Thanksgiving. You ready? North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa. Don't forget Australia. Don't forget Antarctica. North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa. We will be moving on to another continent next month in our circle time. We'll be learning about a different continent. So far we have North America and we have Europe. You'll have to come back to find out what our next one's going to be. All right, back to Thanksgiving. You can see on my board here, I have some of the things that are very important to Thanksgiving, and you're going to hear about them in my story. So as you're listening to the story, you can kind of look here and see if you can find the different characters and the different things from the setting that are part of our story today. This book is called The First Thanksgiving. Now I'm going to tell you from the beginning, there are some names in here that I have a very hard time pronouncing. I will do my best. I'm sorry if I mess some of them up, but some of these names for me are very hard. Okay. We start way back 400 years ago. On September 6th, 1620, a small wooden ship called the Mayflower sailed on its way to America. It had left England with 102 people. These people came to be known as Pilgrims, and this is kind of what they looked like. The men kind of wore hats like that, and the women kind of wore bonnets like that. The Pilgrims had just left England because King James did not want them to practice their own religion. They were on a search for a new home. Sometimes the sea was calm and gentle. The weather was warm and birds flew overhead. Fish leaped above and dipped below the clear blue water. The children in the tiny ship laughed and played hand games. At other times, the sea was rough and stormy. The sky grew gray. Large raindrops fell from the heavy clouds, plopping into the sea and onto the Mayflower. Tall waves rocked the ship, and the children were afraid. With more gray skies than blue, the Mayflower sailed along the ocean for 2 months. Now, 2 months, that's about the same length of time that you and I have been doing school together online. That's a really long time, isn't it, to be on a boat with the waves and the storms. Finally, after the long journey, the weary pilgrims sighted land. "Land ahead!" someone shouted. As the Mayflower got closer and closer, there was nothing but tall trees as far as the eye could see. "We have found the new world," someone said. The Pilgrims were very happy. Slowly the ship made its way inland. This was December 21st, 1620. The Pilgrims docked the ship and came ashore. They were on the land of this is one of the hard words, let's see if I can get it, Wampanoag Nation. This was the village of the Patuxent. "We will call this new land New England," said William Bradford, the Pilgrims' leader. Today, this place is known as Plymouth, Massachusetts. And you know, today you can actually go visit there sometime. The Pilgrims began to explore the new land. They saw no people. The Patuxent Wampanoag and thousands of other native people had died from a terrible sickness that came from European fishermen in 1616. In no time, the Pilgrims began to get settled. Winter was fast approaching. They knew they needed sturdy shelter and a place to store their food. While the women took care of the children, the men began to build. They built one big house that winter, and they called it the Common House. The winter was bitter, cold, and often snowy. The Pilgrims did not have much food left from their trip. Most of the time they were hungry. They tried to stay healthy and cheerful, but it was difficult. Many of them became very sick. The Common House became a hospital for the sick, but the house did not provide enough heat to protect them from the cold, the fierce winds, and the icy storms. Many died. Only 50 pilgrims survived as the winter dragged on. They had a very rough start when they came here, didn't they? Then one day the Pilgrims realized that the long, hard winter had ended. They heard birds chirping, leaves had sprouted on the trees, and spring had arrived. One afternoon, a native man appeared outside. The Pilgrims were surprised when he said, "Welcome, Englishmen." He had learned English from English merchants who came on ships with goods to trade. He was Samoset of the Abenaki people. Later, Samoset brought his friend Squanto to meet the Pilgrims. Squanto knew English too. He had been taken to England in 1614. 5 years later, he made it back home. Squanto taught the Pilgrims how to plant corn. He showed them, this is interesting, how to put fish in the earth 2 weeks before planting. He explained that the fish would fertilize the earth and help the corn to grow well. That was really interesting. The grateful Pilgrims began to plant corn as they were taught. They planted seeds for beans, squash, and pumpkins too. So let's pause for just a second here and talk about what's happening so far. So far we had this group of people that became known as the Pilgrims, left England, left Europe, because they weren't happy with the king there and what the king wanted them to do. And they had a very rough ride that not all of them survived over the ocean to come to our land here where we are now. When they got here, they had more roughness. It was wintertime and the snow was a lot, the cold was bad, and they didn't have a lot of food left. They weren't prepared. But then when the spring came, the people that were already here, the native people, came and helped them and taught them, and they worked together. And they learned how to grow the kinds of foods that would grow where they were. The Pilgrims also learned how to fish, to dig for clams, and to catch eels. After a while, Squanto visited and brought along Chief Massasoit of the Pokanoket Wampanoag. The chief had 60 of his men with him. They talked to the Pilgrims about why they had come to their land. So these two different groups of people are getting to know each other and helping each other and learning. William Bradford and Chief Massasoit made a treaty. They promised to band together against people who would harm them. They're going to work together. Soon it was time for the Pilgrims to prepare for the coming winter. Squanto showed them how to find their way through the woods and how to hunt animals for meat. The Pilgrims built more houses. They worked hard all summer. At the end of the summer, they had built 7 small houses. So remember the first winter, they had that one common house. Now they've grown to 7 houses. Green leaves turned red, gold, and orange with autumn's arrival. The Pilgrims' harvest was plentiful. There were tall stalks of corn, large orange pumpkins, squash, and beans. The Pilgrims were very thankful for their food. Because they were so happy, they decided they should have a big feast and give thanks for all their blessings. That fall in October of 1621, they had a harvest feast. Do you think maybe that's our first Thanksgiving? They were thankful for all the food that had grown and for the native people that had showed them how to do it. For the feast, the men hunted wild turkeys. There's our turkey. And the women cooked. 90 Wampanoag, including Chief Massasoit, joined the Pilgrims at the feast. The guests brought deer that was cooked over a blazing fire. Huge servings of meat were placed on long tables that stood side by side. There were meat pies, wheat breads, and corn puddings. There were berries, grapes, dried plums, and nuts. It sounds like a delicious feast. For 3 days, the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag came together in celebration, eating and dancing and playing games. Can you imagine if Thanksgiving went for 3 days and you got to eat all that good food for 3 whole days? This feast was later called the First Thanksgiving by President Abraham Lincoln. In 1863, he proclaimed the 4th Thursday of November as the official Thanksgiving Day. So there you go. That's why we celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving shows that we are thankful. Thankful that those brave men and women chose to leave and come here for a new life, and thankful for the native people that helped them to survive and taught them how to take care of the land that was here. Those are the reasons we celebrate Thanksgiving. Now the football and the parades, those are extra things that we do for fun. But the important thing is that we spend this time being thankful. Thankful for the people that help us. Thankful for the people that came before us and gave us such a good life. Now we talked about this ship, this Mayflower ship. This is probably what it looked like. Now I made my own Mayflower, and you know what? Mr. Jeff did too. But we haven't seen each other's boats yet. We haven't seen our ships. I made mine, he made his, and we're going to have a race. You guys want to see our race? We're going to put them in some water, and we're going to use straws to blow, and we're going to see whose Mayflower gets to Plymouth Rock first, mine or Mr. Jeff's. You want to see? Come on, let's go check it out. Okay, guys, like I said, Mr. Jeff and I are ready to race, but neither one of us has seen the other one's boat yet. So you ready to show each other our boats?
Ready.
Okay, ready? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Interesting. Okay, so for mine, I used a toilet paper tube that I cut in half, so I have 2 sides to my Mayflower, and I have a wooden skewer and a piece of coffee filter. How about you, Mr. Jeff?
So I have this plastic container, and then I got a straw, and then we were doing some cleaning the other day, and I found this little blue thing that I thought would be perfect for me to tape in there and put a straw. I think it's from a game. And then I used a coffee filter. I used a whole filter. And so I think this baby's going to be pretty fast.
All right, we'll find out. Here is our Plymouth Rock. I'm going to put that right down here at the end. Okay, we're both going to put our boats right in here. First of all, the first thing we have to see is, are they going to float? If one of our boats doesn't float, well, then we automatically lose. We're going to set our boats right here. You ready? Just hold it in place. Don't let it go anywhere yet. Uh-oh, mine's filling with water. Okay, I better move. Oh, no! Well, I think I lost. My boat sunk. Okay, Mr. Jeff, can you blow yours and see if you can make it to Plymouth Rock? Woo!
Yay!
He did it! Okay, guys, well, mine didn't work very well.
Oh, no.
All the marker that I used to color it is dripping off, and everything fell in. So
It was a pretty boat.
mine didn't work, but look at Mr. Jeff's. It's still floating, and he can use his straw to make it go across. Good job, Mr. Jeff.
Thanks. It was fun.
Well, congratulations to Mr. Jeff. He did much better than I did. His not only floated, it moved quickly across the water, and he reached Plymouth Rock, which mine didn't even float, so I couldn't move it across the water, and it couldn't reach Plymouth Rock. So, how are you going to make your Mayflowers today? I don't suggest making them out of a toilet paper tube like I did. That just sunk. Mr. Jeff did a great job, so yay, Mr. Jeff, congratulations. Okay, guys, one more quick story before we leave each other for today. This one is called 1 Little, 2 Little, 3 Little Pilgrims. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little pilgrims. 4 little, 5 little, 6 little pilgrims. 7 little, 8 little, 9 little pilgrims. 10 little pilgrim boys and girls. Let's see if we can find 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Wampanoag. 4 little, 5 little, 6 little Wampanoag. 7 little, 8 little, 9 little Wampanoag. 10 little Wampanoag boys and girls. Let's see if we can find 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, there's a little one. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Digging for clams, fishing for cod. Hunting for ducks, rabbits, and geese. Planting crops of corn and beans. Everyone has a job to do. Digging for turnips, carrots, and beets. Gathering nuts, berries, and squash. Carrying baskets of barley and corn. Now it's time to celebrate. 1 big, 2 big, 3 big turkeys, 4 big, 5 big, 6 big turkeys, 7 big, 8 big, 9 big turkeys, 10 big turkeys for the feast. Do you see these? They're sitting on the fence just like Arthur and Spence do in our finger play. Turkeys, cornbread, cranberry stuffing, pumpkin cider, Indian pudding, clams and oysters. Tommy's growling. They've worked so hard. Let's give thanks and then we'll eat. And they sit down together and they enjoy their Thanksgiving feast together. Well, guys, thanks for coming along today. See what your Mayflowers can do. Go make them, and maybe you can retell the story of the first Thanksgiving to somebody this afternoon. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.